Pius, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Christina. And this we have had lively debates, and we are going to have the last but not the least paper, and that paper will be presented to us by my co-convener, who has been doing a wonderful job, Dr. Christiana Ngozi Idika, who is a lecturer at the Catholic University of Mainz. She's also a researcher at the University of Erfurt in Germany and a visiting lecturer at the Center for Migration Studies, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Nigeria. She's a member of the Young Researcher Group, Theology, Tradition and Transformation with the Benedictine Academy in Austria, and also affiliated to the University of Pretoria as a decolonial research associate, and of course, as a member of the Conversational School of Philosophy. So you can already see our convener has several veils and she wants to unveil, something in this talk. And her talk is titled Why Gender-Based Violence Will Not Be a Philosophical Issue, Unveiling the Epistemological Gap and Silence in African Philosophy. Dr. Christina, you have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, so it's quite a long day. So sometimes the last part I read, people are listening with one ear and people are tired, so mentally and cognitively. So I will just make it brief as much as I can. So why gender-based violence would not be a philosophical issue, unveiling the epistemological gap and silence in African philosophy. So a first glance at the topic suggests a resistance to the idea of a philosophical conception of gender-based violence in African philosophy. However, the second part of the topic says something more than simply a resistance. So in the next 20 minutes, more or less, my attempt is to demonstrate that whether or not an African philosophical conception of gender-based violence is realistic depends on multiple factors, which indeed, excludes, please mark this word, excludes the philosophical nature of the theme. If it does exclude it, that is, if it does exclude the philosophical nature of the theme of gender-based violence, it then implies that an African conceptualization of gender-based violence should be a given. That means if it is a philosophical theme, then it is a given. So we don't even need to worry ourselves about, conceptualizing it. Nonetheless, the reality, the limitation of philosophical writings, and the idea that it is simply a social problem and should be addressed by policy and politics reveals the depth of the epistemological gap and silence inherent in African philosophy. Hence, the second part of the title struggles to unmask, uncover, peel the layers, margins, and blind spots that constitute the inconsistencies in African philosophical theorizing of reality. What is my thesis? My thesis first is this, that there is a common agreement on the nature of human being as a being in a constant, unbroken ontological relationship with the other human beings. And of course, the cosmological constellations. So human beings do not exist in isolation, but are social, communal, and exist as a relational being. We have had it over and over again. And of course, complementarity defines this relationship. Now, but there is a thesis that follows it, which says that these claims are simply intellectual acts and fall short of the reality which should embody it within the primary axiom of mutual recognition. My third thesis is this, that mutual recognition constitutes the essential element that draws the recognizer and the recognized into the moment of mutual necessity, constituting the life of the whole. And that means that this moment of mutual necessity is only possible through the recognizing process and not through an abstract general claim that presents itself as a given. That means that of course, I will come to that. Let me not drop my thesis. And then I have a final thesis that because this is taken as a given, and correspondingly, there is no social reality reflecting this claim of the given. Yes, what I would call an epistemological gap and silence over gender-based violence in African philosophy. In what follows, I will take some of these theses as time allows to buttress my point. The first thesis, when we look at the general or the basic primary claim of being human, what I will call African humanism, whether we call it integrative humanism in the work of somebody like Jonathan, or we call it the Igwa Yedanda, to be is to be with, of Asozo, or whether we call it Ubuntu, I am because we are, we find in the works of people like Mbiti, or some other people like Menkiti, and who again, somebody like Emeka Eze, Onebuchi Eze, something like that. So, or we look at the theory of Ujikoka, also presented by Chimakonam within the frame of his logic. Or even look at Menkiti Fanyi's person and community relationship. Or even Weredu, who argued for a moral foundation, who claims that there is a moral foundation of the African culture. This, we might think, is a given. That means we claim and we think that is the social reality. That is what every African lives. That is what is in the consciousness of an average African. Marcus and Kitayama said, the African sense of belonging to the community and communal relation is so ubiquitous, please mark that word, ubiquitous, and significant that it is reasonable to think of people's relationality as their primary unit of consciousness. That means everybody does that. It is normal, like it is normal for me to think that I am complementary to another person, that I am in an integrative relationship. So my attitude, my behaviors, the way I react, the way I deal with the other person should manifest the same. So now, of course, people have talked about Ubuntu, so I'm not going to go into Ubuntu. And Michael Onebuchi, he says that who added that we should not ignore that it is a valuing of the other, okay, that constitutes this relationship. My second thesis. Mutual recognition constitutes the essential element. That means it is not a given. For this, our claim to hold, there must be a mutual relationship. That is a movement. There must be a responsible. People must consciously act in that direction. So mutual recognition constitutes the essential element that draws the recognizer and the recognized, that is two people in the community or the whole people in the community, into a moment of mutual necessity, constituting the life of the whole. And this is when we refer to, maybe Chimakonam, I agree with him, when he argued in Atwala Malo Malo, that every being is necessary within the network of reality. And that corresponds also to Asozo's notion of missing link. But we need to know that in that missing link, it is not an attachment. So I don't just fix myself into your life because I am a missing link. You don't just fix yourself like, a car that you brought together and you or a chair, you put the head and, or a building that you put the window, you put the door, whatever you like as you will, without the conscious action of the people involved. So this is not an artificial attachment. The coming together of the missing link to complete a moment of a life whole is not forced by them or Blue simply being a brother or a wife or children or husband or friends or colleagues or lovers. Do not make it become a social reality. Do not make this completeness a social reality. It doesn't just happen like magic. There must be a consistent, trustworthy, mutual recognition between or among those who are involved in building this whole. But what do I mean by mutual recognition? Literally, recognition is an acknowledgement. Okay, so I can recognize Pius anywhere I see him. I can recognize Jonathan. I can recognize all the faces that I know. But I don't think that is what we need here as recognition, because I can just identify you without you having any moral value to me, without you having no moral consequence in my action. So recognition means that I recognize that I have a moral responsibility over you. Moral responsibility in the sense of that I am owing you one thing, and I owe you that respect. I owe you that your existence is a necessary existence. It's not that you are going to complete me in terms of utilitarian ideal, okay? But that you are a moral necessity in that particular existence. Because as Susan will argue, talk about the concealment. And because we are concealed, and we can't see the whole reality. So the movement to overcome the reality becomes the movement to recognize the necessity of the other in that network of togetherness or being there for each other. Now, I'll bring a little bit of a German philosopher. He was one of my focus on my doctoral thesis, Axel Honneth. Theory of recognition. So we just sift it. I'm not going to talk about the theory of recognition, but I'm going to lift what I need. So he identified 3 levels, and one of those levels is love. The other is respect, and the other is esteem. So love, he confined love within the family circle. So it is the love of the parents for the child. But I criticize this love of the parents for the child, because it must also be the love of the child for the parents. Okay, so if the child do not acknowledge the motherhood or the fatherhood of the parents, then it is incomplete. No matter how much love the parents show the child, there must be some element, there must be the signs the child show to acknowledge that these people are my parents. Now, and then you add it in another level. Once that moves away a little bit from the family, you see his idea of relationship of respect. And then finally, the relationship of esteem. These 3 constitute the movement, the recognizing process, that you recognize the other in this movement. Now, let me focus a little bit on this idea of love. Because love, we talk about domestic violence and all that. So sometimes you see, even within what you call love, there is violence going on. Okay? Violence going on, all in the name of love. All right? So I won't talk much because I am not married anyway. So the reality might differ. My perception of it and the reality that people who are married live every day might as well differ. Although we are doing some kind of an abstract thinking, an abstract experiment. Now, let me not talk about love. Let me talk about what people might call the opposite of love. So, opposite of love is not hate. Okay, so I don't know, Karel Wattler, that is the former John Paul II, wrote a book on what he called love and responsibility. He said the opposite of love is use. Okay, it's use. The opposite of love is use. That means let me just be arbitrary, or let me just be banal. When a man or a woman says, I love this man, or a man says, I love this girl, and it's about this genital connection, okay? The instrumentalizing of this person to satisfy my personal urge, okay? So it has moved actually from what you call love to use. It doesn't matter who is using who. Okay, so now here is also, there is no mutual recognition. Both have turned each other to an object of satisfaction of their desire. It doesn't matter the level of the desire. It is only things that can be used, not someone. So the moment we turn the object before us to the object of use, then the person lacks the humanity. And when that person lacks the humanity, it cannot, in that sense, complete a part of that, integrative humanity. Okay? Not that we can't relate with things. Of course, we can relate with things. I can relate with my car. So if my car goes bad, I can take it. But the car cannot respond to me. So mutual recognition must exist between two people who have the capacity to recognize. So if you turn your object, the object before you, into the person before you into an object, that person has no capacity to recognize you. And by, in fact, doing that, something happens. And that is why I would have to read a paper, I would have to read a quote from Anne Cizere. I don't know whether I got Cizere. I don't know whether I got the word. It's a French word. So I don't know how. Aimé, or Aimé.
Aimé Césaire. Aimé Césaire.
Aimé Césaire. Okay, thank you very much.
Wait.
Yeah, okay. So she provided us with a reflective point, and that is colonization dehumanizes even the most civilized man. That colonial enterprise, colonial conquest, which is based on the contempt for the native and justified by that contempt, inevitably tends to change him who undertakes it, that is the colonizer, who, in order to ease his conscience, gets into the habit of seeing the other man as an animal, accustoms himself into an animal. So here, the argument is this. When somebody meets, whether that is how we can understand an integrative African philosophy of gender-based violence, is that when somebody perpetrates an act of violence to another, there is two things that person must do. First, the person must reduce the object of violence to nothing. The person must see that person as not a human being, as an animal or something that could be killed, like what happened in Rwanda when the Tutsis called the Tutsis cockroaches. So violence becomes effective the moment the violator begins to look at the object, the person that is going to be violated, the eye that person is just nothing. But we'll do that. Purification, let's call it that. Purification. The same is applicable. The way for us to understand gender-based violence in Africa with our humanism is that the humanism destroyed in another is the same humanism destroyed in another. That means the humanism of both involved, both the perpetrator and the victim, is at this moment destroyed. Without recognition that, okay, then here again, violence must be seen as simply, not simply bodily injury, but also every act that creates a sense of self-deflection. I think I wanted to say something about okay, so now Simon Okafor, in his article, Structuration Theory and Patriarchy System in Africa, published in 2021, said that structure involves inherent feelings, thoughts in men to see women as property. Okay? As property. Just mark that word, as property. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this idea with the concept of bride price. And that will be where I will focus the last part of my discussion. Bride price. So, bride price legitimizes marriage. Okay? Bride price makes the woman the possession of the man. Just like a man goes to the market to buy a car, to buy that, to buy that. Now, we so normalize, okay, see what this man said about social structure. He said, social structure has no existence independent of the knowledge that agents have about what they do in their day-to-day activities. Okay? So to look at the practice that makes African humanistic claim inconsistent or makes it only an intellectual art without a reflection in social reality. Kasara Mugati and Nyasha Malambo. Sorry if I get these names wrong. I'm only trying to pronounce them. Wrote a book they called La Bella. So the interface between bride price and domestic violence. So I will leave out that area of domestic violence and use the whole idea of bride price. While acknowledging that the role of bride price in legitimizing marriage, I argue that it consigns women to the level of purchased household furniture. In principle, it is hard to say that relationship is complementary in the context where you have a relation of the buyer and the goods bought. Women are purchased rather than enter into the life of a man to become a missing link in the reality of the man, and vice versa. So this practice has been normalized in a way that every day we think that paying bride price is a normal thing. But I'm sure you must have heard men saying, I paid your bride price. You belong to me. Now we're talking about body autonomy. You belong to me. You are my property. I mean, he's making a very big claim. Okay, because that bride price has been paid. Now, even in the modern time, this has been worsened because if the woman went to school, the bride price will increase. If the woman is a virgin, the bride price will increase. If the woman is pretty, the bride price will increase. Okay, so, and the family will use the woman to make money. All right, so the woman becomes an object of making money. And the buyer, not after paying that huge sum of money, we will expect him not to use his property that he bought with his money. But this is in a context where we are claiming that we have a common humanity, that we have an integrative humanism, that everybody is a necessity in that network, that everybody has a right in that network. So my claim is simple, that it's not that gender-based violence has no philosophical context, but rather that African philosophical reality, thematization and philosophizing, has so much focus on demonstrating and defending itself before its attackers that it has even forgotten to look inward to discover that it is being silent by its overgeneralization. And finally, so long as gender-based violence prevails, then whatever we talk about in terms of African humanism need to be interrogated. But why am I saying it is an impossible thing to even conceptualize it? I will borrow from Chinakonam's idea of super alpinism, and I will just take one point. Okay, Chinakonam asked 3 questions regarding epistemic injustice. He said, 1, how can injustice, epistemic injustice, be redressed? Okay, injustice of credibility deficit be redressed. How can the prejudice in the perpetrator's mind be eliminated? Okay, so it is not a matter of what the law does to stabilize the situation or relationship, but how can we change the cognitive condition in which the perpetrators of gender-based violence have been socialized? Like the example I gave with bride price, how can you change that prejudiced mind that thinks paying a bride price means that I have bought a property? How can we change that mind in a family that thinks selling away their child will elevate their economic status. So gender-based violence is, of course, a philosophical issue. But when you consider it within the framework of African philosophical humanism, how we understand our existence, you begin to worry whether that is a reality, that it is ubiquitous, and that it is a conscious state of Africans, when these things are embedded in the cognitive, social cognition, and individual cognition of Africans. So I think I will stop there. If you have them questions, you can ask. I didn't finish my paper, but I need to look at time. All right.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Idika, for for that interesting one. And I think when you got to the bride price, I saw most of the males smiling, and it was really tantalizing the way you sailed through with concepts like Ibwanyi Ndanda, Ezumezu, Ubuntu, etc. And it's good. I see reactions already. There's Diana Ofana already indicating for a question. Yes, Diana, we don't have time. We are already running out of time. So make your question very brief and straight to the point. Diana, you have the microphone.
Thank you so much. My question to Christiana is, should the bride price be eliminated from our culture? And should bride price be, is it okay for us to eliminate bride price? And my second question is, I think the issue of bride price varies from culture to culture. There are some cultures that take little or nothing from the groom. And again, it's in the place of the woman to talk to her family that my husband is not a gold mine where you want to excavate and take everything from him. I think it boils down to it's a complementary understanding between who is going to, where you're getting married into, and your would-be bride. So I think bride price is a thing of value in some culture, because a woman cannot just simply just come to your house and start giving you children with no, even the society itself will shame her to say, what did the man pay on you that you're seated there? So I think it's something we need to look and deeply into. That is it. Thank you.
Should I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not saying it should be removed. Even if you remove it, it is still in the mind of people who go to another person's house to take the girl and bring the girl back to I brought you to my house. Whether there was a bride price paid. Meaning, when you think of girls who got pregnant and nothing was done in their head and they went and lived with a man, have you listened to that man talk to them? Okay, have you also listened? So I'm not focusing on the bride price. I'm only saying that it has mentally conditioned the way you understand the person who is married as a property. Maybe not every man. There are men that are learned now. They don't do that. I mean, there are people who are advanced. But I'm telling you, the social consciousness. And now you even said it. Why did you move to his house? He hasn't even done anything in your head. Okay, and I want you to also know that if a man didn't pay your bride price, if you have a child, it doesn't belong to the man. You know why? Because when you plant a tree, you can't go and harvest where you didn't plant. So it is also a question of ownership. So I'm not saying it should be abolished, but it has created a mental condition. That's what I'm saying. It has created a mental condition. And this is where philosophy should instrumentalize, to make sure that we understand that it has nothing to do with turning that person to your property. Okay, it is a matter of, that recognition, overcoming concealment that makes you to think that the wife you married is your property, or that the man you married, of course, is your property.
Okay. Any other? I don't see any other questions coming up there, and I just noticed you mentioned Aimé Césaire and colonialism and using people, and you mentioned Karol Wojtyla. That was very interesting. I would like you to highlight more. I mean, when Karol Wojtyla talks of loving someone, not using the person, what does he actually mean by that? I mean, I didn't follow. I was dozing off at one time. Yes. Unmute yourself, please.
He said it in the context of marriage and also in the context of sexual relationship. So, and he says that marriage is not all about, the channel of marriage is not all about satisfaction of desire. It doesn't matter what this desire is, but which most of the time manifests in, sexual desire. When I see somebody and I love the person, you realize that it is just my gut desire that is longing for the person. So he didn't condemn it, but he is only saying that you are trying to use the person. So, and the moment we use the word use, okay, so he said the opposite of love is not hatred, but the opposite of love is using to people. So we can say, I like you only for me to make sure that it is your economic so that you can be giving me money. This is also using. Girls can use men to make money for themselves. So love is something against use. That is his own argument. And the moment you start using somebody, that person becomes a thing. Unification. And in that context, that is where I now made up my argument that a thing and a human being cannot exercise mutual recognition, which is needed to complete what we call integrative humanism.
Okay, dear colleagues, dear friends, I think it's on that note on
before you conclude, please, Odinti wanted to say something. Just give him a few seconds.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't hear. Okay, good. I didn't notice this.
Professor Odinti, please.
Okay. Oh, thank you. A very quick one. I just wanted to appreciate, but also, you're doing a great job. But I have maybe two questions. We have to be cautious, in professing solutions. I would rather encourage colleagues on this platform so that we ask the right questions and so that we can assist the organizers to conceptualize and frame the GBV in the best way and in the best interest of the conference moving forward. So there are three risks that one is we may, if we rush into providing solutions to the problems that exist as far as the GBV conceptualization is concerned, one is falling into the trap of truism. Two is conflicting African-rooted practices for formal philosophy. For instance, just because a practice is logical, it does not qualify to be a philosophy. There is quite a lot of things that need to be done so that you qualify it and practice, and so that it can compete in amongst the galaxy of knowledge, because it's all about knowledge in the global system. And then finally, let's not be apologetic of the African social cultural fabrics. Just because the Western philosophy is articulated. For example, what is the difference between the Western romanticism and the promiscuity or the fattening among some African societies? We should not be ashamed of that. After all, some of the philosophies that come from the West are evil. Actually, they are not good at all, but we never get ashamed about them. But we are ashamed because we encourage our women to be fat, or in some societies, or those kind of things. And then what do you make of the same-sex marriage in the Western philosophy and the African patriarchal rituals? Aren't both of them filthy? I think they are all filthy. When the West tell us that we can have same-sex marriage, homosexuality, we are very quick in adopting them. We are very quick in having them adopted in our policies. Yet we are ashamed about the Amago. There is this good community somebody presented. Is it a community in Nigeria, Amago or something? the presentation by one of the presenters was such an interesting. I mean, the culture seemed to be almost similar culture to some cultures in East Africa, particularly in Kenya. And so we should not be, apologetic to the West culture, but we have to carefully look at what is good. And then we started the journey of developing antitheses to some of the Western ideologies and philosophies so that we can have Afrocentric scholarship thrive. Thank you very much. Back to Pius and Christian.
Yeah, before I give back to Christian, I want to thank Professor Onditi for these very nice words, calling us not to be apologetic, and that's why we are here. That's why we are doing. That's why we're in the Conversational School of Philosophy. We try to fill the epistemological gap, break the silence, and I think we have learned a lot this evening with these discussions. I think all the presenters, I wouldn't go to call you one after the other, have really been phenomenal. You have actually given us a good reason to think of, to have conceived of this colloquium. And you all speak like, some of you speak like activists, but I think with the questions we asked you, you later became conversational thinkers, and that's all we do in the Conversational School of Philosophy. I think I'm done from this part. If there is any other development, I think we shall call you. I think beyond this colloquium, we should do something much more palpable. I'm speaking in parables, but I think we'll get back to you if at all that comes. That's all from this end, and let me call my co-convener Christina to say the last word. But Christina, I hope you know in Africa, the elder is not the one who says the last words, because his words may provoke further words, and when you finish, we'll know what to do. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. That we didn't use a man speaks last and a woman speaks first. Okay, so before I conclude, like my colleague said, we might be inviting these papers to be published in our journal. So please, you might need to start maybe to work on the papers. Our journal is peer reviewed, so that you presented it here is not a guarantee that it will be published. So we need a quite scholarly work with arguments. And secondly, is that most of the times after participation like this, people will start communicating, asking for certificates and all that. So please, if you need certificates, I'm sure anybody here has somebody that invited him or her, or that you're a member of the SCSP. So just indicate either through mail or through anybody that you have the contact here that you need one. And then finally, Dr. Jonathan, can you say 1-2 words and then we go?
You got it. You didn't fall into a trap.
Thank you very much. It is your program, you and Pius, so I think it is fitting that you people have the last words. But since I have been called, because where I come from, that's a proverb that says that that a lamb does not know how to dance, does not mean that when the drummers come into his father's house, that he will not dance. So thank you very much for this wonderful outing that you guys have put together. It is a colloquium convened by CSP in Europe, and the two of you anchored it. We're very happy. It was exciting. Lots of wonderful ideas that were thrown up, and lots of arguments to enjoy ourselves, because to philosophers, arguments, what we use to relax and to enjoy ourselves. So the last word I have really for us and to some of the presenters and some of us who attended is to always learn to separate our emotions, our passions, our feelings, our assumptions from the subject matter that we investigate. Because as human beings, you feel you are touched in one way or the other by whatever you have chosen to investigate. But it is your duty as a scholar, as a rigorous one, to be able to draw that line because without it, you end up seeing yourself, you know, having a lot of mixing solid arguments with some quality emotions, which will again defeat the objective of scholarship, which is to arrive at truth, or what is in the best interest of scholarship and research, like Professor Otundi said. So there are lots of things in the scholarship they are given to us by Europeans and Eurocentric scholars that are not just true. They are just factual errors. For example, a number of arguments used to support gender-based female circumcision are medically spurious, you know, and it is our responsibility as scholars to interrogate some of these things that are in the literature, not just to embrace and accept them and begin to use them as if they are correct. And to again ask the fundamental questions of why some societies practice female circumcision and male circumcision. It is the interrogation has to start from that foundation, and then think of either modernizing or dropping and bringing some other new things. It is not correct that we must abandon everything in Africa and accept everything in Western. It is not correct. Whatever position you take, you've got to defend it with arguments that are impassioned. And that is what we do in the Conventional School of Philosophy, and that is what true scholarship reflects. And for those of us who want to reclaim the narrative of African archive that's been colonized over time, it's important that we, again, continue to maintain the importance of critically engaging whatever that we receive, whatever that we, through literature, through oral sources, and all kinds of things, in order to be able to project a knowledge that is both logical and critical. Thank you, the presenters, for giving us a lot to feed on. Thank you for other people that attended for contributing your ideas, either through direct speech or through the chat. We enjoyed a lot, all of them. And thank you most especially to our conveners, Christy and Pius. You've done a wonderful job. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Okay, so I want to make an announcement. Maybe you must have read from the chat. There is a book coming out. We are calling for contributors, and many of you have also written their emails. But if you have not, please, you can still do that. You can contact any of us here if you have our contacts. If you are interested in contributing a book chapter, remember the deadline is 31st of May. It's on her story, okay, of African philosophy. Okay, so that's all for coming.
Okay, bonsoir, au revoir à tout le monde. Bye bye. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Great presentation.
Merci.
Thank you.
Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Jay.